I would now like to introduce Juan Montes, who is the Chief Technology Officer of, I guarantee you are not expecting this, the Museum of Modern Art. What's really interesting is that as CTO, he replaced the outgoing CIO. And I think that says a lot about the broadening and enriching charter that technology has in every field today, including, of all things, the arts. Juan, tell me what the technology portfolio of an organization like MoMA has to be these days.
Well, I mean, we have such a multiplicity of activities. We have, obviously, the heart of what we do is about the art. So collections, high-resolution images, these are things that you would expect. But we also have a retail operation. We have to keep track of the people who are part of our community. So that's why we're interested in Salesforce. And we're interested in having that information be accessible, to have sort of the business intelligence layer be accessible to every knowledge worker in the organization. Our core mission is to engage the greatest possible audience of modern art in the world. To really do that, we have to make the transition from digital to physical seamless. We can't do that without technology. And we have to be able to allow someone who only comes to MoMA one time in his or her life the ability to kind of take something away from that experience. All of these things are things that technology can do.
I've read an interview with one of your colleagues in which she talked about replacing a 30-year-old CRM system, if you could even call it that, with Salesforce.com, and the problem that I've sometimes called Stockholm Syndrome, which is that it may not have been a very good system, but people knew it. It was familiar pain. Tell me about adoption of new systems in areas where people hate the workarounds, but have workarounds. They know what they're doing. Now they need to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, and I'm sure most of the people in the room know this kind of thing, you have to have a multi-layered approach. The first is you have to clearly articulate the strategic value of what you're doing. If people don't have a sense of where they're going, they're not going to follow you, when the going gets tough, 150 yards into the desert. And then you have to break the project up into manageable parts and clearly articulate what the benefits are going to be at each stage. And I can't stress enough the value of communication. At MoMA, we have lots of different constituencies. People often don't know what's going on in other departments. Technology in a technology department can be very instrumental in bridging those gaps and letting everyone know how technology is fitting into an overall strategy.
All of our guests will tell you, we don't write a script for them, but I'm struck by the fact that having picked you out for leadership in various areas, many of you are telling what seem like very similar stories. We could almost just change the nouns and verbs, and you're saying, this is about changing my organization. This is about connecting with internal and external constituencies. And I'm not hearing you talk about the technology challenge, because that's no longer what really keeps you interested in what you do.
Absolutely not. I mean, technology is fun. I love it. But really, it's thinking about, how you can bring value to a curator, how a curator needs to connect with marketing in order to do what he or she does. These are the really, really interesting questions. And of course, knowing how the technology works allows us to make a map of, what we're trying to do, where we're trying to get, and how we get there.
I get the feeling that even though we're talking about the Museum of Modern Art, I could be having the same conversation with the Met or with the Metropolitan Opera or with institutions where people don't say, oh, well, of course, half their stuff is, sound and light shows. The fact that you need a CTO in a museum is not because it's modern art. It's because making it accessible to people, letting them have the community they take with them when they leave the museum. These are all challenges that all institutions share.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think these challenges are shared by all museums, cultural institutions. I think where the museums of contemporary art have a unique challenge is that art itself is becoming digital. So that's a challenge that I think is unique in our space, and we have to figure out ways of doing things that traditionally are not done using digital technology, such as conservation, and putting on shows. How do you put on a show that was developed on an operating system that's 20 years old? Those are the kinds of questions we have to grapple with.
It's funny you should bring that up because I saw someone recently saying that the verb to curate is being way too broadly applied. He said, I'm not a curator, damn it, I'm an editor. You guys do have curators, and some of the issues you're talking about preserving access to works of art created with legacy technology, that is a really big challenge, of course, also for CIOs in government, where they might have, or NASA, for example, where they've got old magnetic tapes. Is that something that's a real concern in the community?
Yeah, when I first joined MoMA, I was taken to a conference on this at SF MoMA, and I thought, I took my notebook, I was, iPad ready to take notes, and then I realized I was supposed to be on this panel. They thought that because, we're the Museum of Modern Art, we would have all the answers. But really, this is an area where we're learning as we go, and we're discovering the answers. So it's one of my favorite areas and one of my key areas of interest.
Okay, you wake up tomorrow morning, and one of the vases at the Metropolitan Museum of Art suddenly turns out, in fact, to be the genie of the lamp, and it comes out and offers you 3 wishes. What would you wish for if you could just say, okay, look, I don't have time to wait for Salesforce.com to do this next year or next month. I really want it tomorrow. What would that be?
Wow. I want a big, okay, so this is non-iterative answer. The first answer would be, a bunch of other wishes, but barring that.
Spoken like a true public sector professional, yeah.
Sorry, but if I can't have something like that, then I would say I want a smart, machine learning-like big data algorithm that figures out what everyone out there wants, how they want to engage us, and puts it into Salesforce for me.
Well, you know what? I'm about to introduce you to the closest thing we have to a big, smart machine learning algorithm that puts what the customer's desires into the product. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chairman and CEO Marc Benioff.
All right. Hey, thanks, Peter.